Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. It is the 26th of January of the year 2026. And we are very fortunate to have with us tonight one of the folks, the stalwarts, one of the greats that come on our show on a regular basis, Representative Court Boyce, the voice of reason. And someone who actually can tell us as we close in on the annual session here for the state legislature starting a week from today, right? That February 2nd, I think, is when it officially opens, but you're very busy now already. Wow, what's going to happen, or what's going to happen to Oregon, I should say.
Well, Kevin, thanks for having me on. I just really want to extend an appreciation for, you just keep getting the truth out and connecting with people. And we're going to turn Oregon purple at some point, and just a lot of really big issues, but a lot of great opportunities. So, yeah, the session's going to be 6 weeks, maybe a little bit less. The first week is basically we're only allowed two bills, and so that first committee, 3 or 4 days, will be getting those bills, each individual representative and senator, getting those bills up and running so that we can hopefully get them to the floor for a vote over that last 4.5 weeks. So, hey, I've been put back on housing and homeless, that committee. I'm
Yep.
very happy about that. That's kind of a cherished one on the west side of the Capitol. Still, of course, on ag, water, land use, natural resources, and that's right up my right up my alley. Serving Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties with the forestry, fishing, and farming. And then, of course, emergency management. Fire is my number one issue, and emergency management, excuse me, and veterans. So I'm just really happy. My crew is raring to go, and this will be our third session. We've completed 3 years now. So excuse me, starting our fourth year. So, yeah, thanks again for having me on, and thanks for the good work you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that, and I also think that we're staring straight into a situation where the Democrats kind of get to write the rules, right? They are the ones who are going to determine what gets heard, what doesn't, what passes, what doesn't. So you get two bills, but they get to decide if your two bills go someplace, right? And of course, you reach out to Democrats and try to form bonds across the aisle. But isn't this kind of one of the most political sessions? It's supposed to be the least political session. It was supposed to be I think, just to adjust budgets for changes that happen between the long sessions every 2 years, and now it kind of has turned into something where Democrats come in and they pass sweeping legislation that they think will help them in the general election.
Well, we had a great group of candidates for the 2024 election on the House side. We were at 25 seats, and we actually lost all those close races, about four in particular, maybe five. And we've got some great candidates this go around. We've always wondered, when it comes back to common sense, when the people kind of the voters will reach that threshold, and they'll say, okay, we see how terrible our schools are doing. We see our economy going down. We see homelessness rising. Oregon is on the decline. I think, Kevin, as you well know, one of the biggest issues is the amount of companies leaving Oregon, the layoffs. We're sitting at 115,000 people unemployed right now, and big companies that love Oregon, but they're getting highly recruited from other states, and not just red states either. They're getting recruited where they can go in and pay less taxes, and set their families in good environments, and just raise the quality of life. So that's why our side is determined that we can bring Oregon companies back. And but anyway, all those issues just really add up to a tough time for Oregon, and we're not getting better. And the governor come out with a prosperity plan. I'm very happy that she picked Tim Knope to run that program. But you would swear that after the 16, 18 years that she's been a state government, that now she understands that businesses are leaving, and we've got to stop that exodus. And so I thought a Republican wrote her prosperity plan. Not to be negative, but that's an issue. And yeah, I could talk about all the negatives, but our side deserves a chance to govern, and we will hold ourselves accountable, and we will just give us 2 years, and we will come back to fiscal responsibility. I think that's maybe the biggest issue I've learned is how much money is wasted in our state government, and you saw it. Yeah, you saw it in the tax revolt and repealing 3991.
Well, and that's going to be part of what comes up here too, because we know that it qualified, that there were almost four times as many signatures uh, gathered and turned in as were needed to get on the ballot. And so now it's going to be, technically it's supposed to be on the November 2026 ballot, but just about everybody at this point, including now the Democrats officially, don't believe that it's going to be on that ballot. They do have the power in the legislature and with the governor to change when it appears. They can move it up, right?
Hmm.
And I think the word is they plan to move it up to um, to the primary in May, which for them it's like, okay, they'll find out sooner just how unpopular it is when people reject it. But then we've got elections going on at the same time for other offices in the primary, and so it's going to have a different dynamic. They're hoping to avoid the ire of voters landing on them in the general election. But what do you think about all this, and what should people think about what's being done?
Well, first of all, the entire process is, I think, give the governor a terrible black eye. Again, not to be negative, but the millions of dollars we spend on the special sessions. I say a double special session in September, and all that went with that. And she basically stiff armed said, "Hey, there's no way they'll get the signatures." My gosh, that deal. Jason Williams and Bruce Starr just, and the volunteers that came out were just incredible. And it was a horrible bill. Um, so the Democrats trying to go back, and that's a shenanigan any way you look at it, and it's probably illegal. And with the 1935, you know, court decision that basically says, yeah, well, it was the people signed it for the general election, and that's where it should stay. So, we have Dan Rayfield out there, our Attorney General, likable guy, but he's kind of taken the lead of the five statewide offices with Secretary of State and Bully and Attorney General, Governor, and Treasurer. So yeah, the people, unfortunately, they do have short memories sometimes, but I think this has got a real strong momentum, and it's not just rural Oregon. We see the waste in ODOT. I mean, in my area, ODOT just does a fabulous job. But a lot of those funds come from the federal government for highway repairs, on the coast especially. And everything is so weather, dependent, and on how our roads last, culverts, everything else. But so you mentioned relationships, Kevin, early on the other side, and I value that. I've learned that from other successful legislators more so than me, but that I admire and respect, and that mentor me. And I reach across the aisle in a genuine way. And my job now is um, to encourage those other legislators that, hey, this is not good for the citizens I represent. It's not good for the citizens you represent. Here's why. And it's just a bad trick. And I think the people are starting to figure it out. And I will lobby the governor too, as well. I think the Democrats have to hurt themselves to protect her. And so we got some close races coming up, and we think we can win some of those. And we're going to be working very hard, as you know.
Well, so that means the Democrats are going to go do some things that people are going to be pretty unhappy with, and they're going to burn some political capital and maybe take some risks that they think they can take on these races that were close last time that we're going to try again. And and so that's why we have to kind of be ready to explain to folks why 2026 should be the year that the citizens of Oregon maybe choose a different path, because continuing to vote for the same thing and expecting a, a different or at least a better result, sometimes they get a different result that's worse, but they don't get a better result. That's kind of the definition of insanity. So if we can help them see how flawed an approach that is, they could have something better and different. They could have less crime. They could have a more affordable standard of living. They could have businesses that aren't being mired in red tape and regulation. People aren't being hit with taxes at every level, at every
Yep.
uh, function, and they could also potentially have things like infrastructure where they and roads that get repaired where they focus on the priorities of the people instead of the priorities of some special interest group in Salem. And that case, this is the window of opportunity to make it. When votes are being cast, there won't be a lot of hearings, will there? I mean, it'll be very limited, right? Because they don't really have time for a lot of hearings.
We made a good point earlier when you mentioned that the other side, they control the gavels, the agendas, and the committees. Sometimes it's not fun. Usually it is. Back to relationships, that works. And so our job is just to say, okay, here's the 2 or 3 bills that we have each individual, and here's the rationale behind it. Here's how it'll help Oregonians. And so, yeah, we take that real seriously. When it comes to real serious, excuse me. But when it comes to will they be impacted? Will the Democrats on the other side really hesitate to carry the tradition that they've carried in this state for so long? And that is, it's in their DNA to raise taxes and spend. I got to say it, they spend wildly. And it's heartbreaking because taxpayers work so hard, and a lot of them are unaware. And but they become more engaged and more informed, and so we go, okay, thank you. This is what we're battling for, and we need your help and support, and even sometimes encouragement. But will the Democrats change? Will they come to our side and say, yeah, that was a bad bill? It hurts the middle class. It hurts the working families. Makes it harder to live in Oregon. Everybody uses the affordability word nationwide, and I say, hey, how about livability? I mean, I grew up in such an incredibly wonderful era, and so to see the generations that follow to not have those same kind of, I mean, it's just it might sound a little drastic, but there's a portion of this state that is turning towards third world status. I mean, you see trash, you see the addictions. I mean, it's getting worse every day, and people are recognizing that. How did we get here? Well, the same people been in charge, or the same philosophies, as you know, Kevin, have been in charge for 40 years. And it's what the president say 6 years ago on his first election. What do you got to lose by giving us a chance? Uh,
Right.
we we will get the job done. I mean, we are dedicated and we are determined. We have proven solutions, and they work. And it's a cap. It truly is, Kevin, the capitalist system versus all other systems.
Yeah.
And the free enterprise. I mean, nothing has ever beat the free market since time began. And so when people have that individual responsibility, that individual freedom, they're going to perform, they're going to produce, and they're going to raise their families better. They're going to educate their kids better. They're going to employ people. Yeah, I, I know you and I are very much on the same page there.
Well, and so I saw. So Lori asked us a question here. What was the financial tab on Kotek's special session? I don't know how much the session cost, I'm sure millions actually, but and it was super long. But also, the governor has come out and I guess thrown a tantrum and said, well, we should just repeal the entire transportation bill. We'll just punish the state. That was what she said. Now I don't. Maybe she's not going to follow through on that. I don't know. Um, and maybe they will come up with some other revenue scheme or something, a backup plan. But they really don't have an agenda that plans to grow the economy at all in the face of businesses leaving and in the face of, you know, businesses that don't want to come here and locate here. What's their plan to keep funding this state government that they keep growing and giving like now they want to pay unemployment benefits to people who are um,
On strike.
yeah, that go on strike, who are not looking for work, who are not they are not unemployed involuntarily. They are.
No, we fought that with everything we had because that's a 10-week system where you don't, and you just said it, you don't have to look for work, you don't have to report, you just get free money, and people don't realize, a lot of people anyway don't realize, the employee pays none of the employment taxes. It all goes into a system for the unemployment times when it's really needed by the folks that were laid off. And so, yeah, I mean, we give it all we could to overcome that, and we failed. But it's back to the basics where that's why businesses are leaving Oregon, and um, the people are really under a kind of an impressive system in when they're being taxed so heavy, and now the state of Oregon is kind of catching up to where our people are. They're under a real tough budget program. I can just give one example. I could give several, but one is Portland State University. They burnt 17 police cars. I mean, I beat that drum because nobody was ever held accountable. Cost just the police cars alone cost the taxpayers $1 million. Not Portland State, not the city of Portland, but all the taxpayers in Oregon. Guess what? And Governor candidate Christine Drazan made an excellent point on this. We were outvoted to continue to send Portland State, get this, easy to vet, 220 million out of last year's budget. And it just and we can't get rural law enforcement for our sheriff's departments. And yeah, I could go I could give you a lot more detail, but another one is the capital started out at, I think Kevin, was a little over 400 million for the remodel. That was before I got there. It's been a 5.5 year project. It's about 90% done now, and it's going to be 700 million. I mean, we just don't have the money. And then, yeah, it's just, we just spend so irresponsibly.
Well, and they're trying to have rural counties, uh, or almost any county outside the Portland metro area, have law enforcement levels of law enforcement that date back to decades ago when the population was smaller, and they simply don't have the ability to cope with even the most basic thing. They don't. I think the thing I heard for the jail in Coos County, I think it has a 250 uh, bed capacity, something like that. But they only have funds for 50 beds. So if they have people coming through committing crimes, they can't hold them if it goes over that limit. And of course, when you add to that Oregon's lax bail laws, some people with very serious crimes simply get let out on 10% bail, and they flee the jurisdiction. We've seen that. They go out and commit more crimes. They don't get a message that anything's going to happen to them. And this is where money just simply doesn't go to law enforcement. They also won't let you harvest enough timber and receive enough revenue from that to fund these services the way it used to work. And then they spend money left and right on stuff that doesn't actually advance the economy or produce public safety or any of the stuff that's in everyone's priority list, except for the radical far left in Salem. That's in their priority list. The stuff they're doing with money there, that's in their priority list, right?
Yeah, and we're a natural resource state, and we should be teaching our kids truly the incredible benefit of renewable resource. That's our fish. That's our timber. And so we have to protect our watersheds. That's what makes our rivers beautiful. And of course, I'm right in the middle of that with my entire life career. And we destroy those watershed. We hurt the fish. We hurt the timber. And the the radical environmental movement is alive and well in Oregon, and they are so dogmatic in their approach. They will not admit, after the incredible fires that we've had, year after year. And hey, that's another one. I follow the ODF and the Oregon State Fire Marshal really close, and they come to our Emergency Management Veterans Committee and they give reports. And man, the last 2 years, their reports have been incredible. I just kind of summarize it this way: 1910, or excuse me, back up, sorry, 2000 through 2010, compared to 2011 through 2020, triple the amount of acres lost. Now you can blame it on climate change. I can offer that debate anytime, but it is a lack of good, active, wise timber management. It's like the
Yeah.
Native Americans did for many years, and you know, you get these wilderness areas that are inaccessible. We can't get firemen in safely and out safely. It's yeah, I could talk on that a long time. And you made a good point a minute ago that one of the biggest frustrations I've had, 6 years as a county commissioner and 3 years as a state rep, when those trees burn and they sit there on the stump and they will not let us harvest them. Each tree, on an average, is worth about $1,200, and there's literally millions of them. In the state, you asked a minute ago, what are we going to do for revenue? We just have to continue to demonstrate logic and common sense and traditional things that work. And yeah, it's horribly frustrating sometimes, but we just, like Winston Churchill said, you never, 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 never give up.
No, never give up. And to be honest, I think that the Democrats have gotten away, thanks to the media, with ignoring everyone, with telling people in Portland one thing while something else is happening outside of Portland everywhere else, and people are pretty unhappy with it. This has been a continuous issue. Like all the stuff that you're seeing going on in the Capitol, the crazy stuff, that's just not getting reported out here. I even have to look for it sometimes. Like I pay attention and I have to go out and find it, right? And so what are some of the crazy things that they're thinking about doing? Are they going to try to raise some taxes in this session? What else are they going to try to whip up? Because we know there's a budget hole, there's a transportation bill. Are they going to disconnect the federal
Oh, I'm
tax?
so glad you brought that up. If they do, it's a kind of a backdoor. Although we're going to make it real obvious, backdoor opportunity for them to raise more taxes. You disconnect from the big beautiful bill, whether you like the Trump bill or not. The policy is good for America. It's good for the taxpayers, the people that are pulling the wagon, of course. And so to disconnect from that basically gives Oregon the opportunity to just charge whatever they want. And when you have a three-fifths majority, we can't stop tax raises. I mean, we have. There might have been a little luck involved there, Kevin, but we can't continue to do that. That's why we need to increase our territory, our numbers, and why we need to have a conservative governor, a business-oriented governor. So, yeah, the disconnecting with the federal tax system would be horrible for Oregon taxpayers. And I think we're starting to be successful in getting that message out. Keep your fingers crossed. Always protecting the kicker. When we when the state of Oregon, Oregon Department of Revenue collects too much money, that money goes back to the taxpayers, the excess. We put it in a fund to for more DEI policies, more Green New Deal policies. You know, it's just it's kind of fun. It's interesting. It's intense. But we're, you know, I work with 11 women and 12 men, and on the house side, and I'm around surrounded by a lot of brain power. One of these days, I'm going to catch up, but some really bright people that are just so business oriented, so family oriented, so love Oregon, and man, they just work incredibly hard.
Well, that is good to hear. I know that are they going to toy with the idea of a sales tax? Are they talking about that in the session?
You know, I would be for a sales tax like Texas has if it
Income
totally
tax.
eliminated the income tax.
Yeah.
And what they call it in Texas is a consumption tax. So I don't support a sales tax because there is no discipline whatsoever to avoid not doing both. You know, the more money you get, the more you spend, the more you got to raise, and the more the people you know, their interests are compromised. Maybe Texas calls it a consumption tax. Everybody pays, period. And there are
Yeah.
some excuse me, some exemptions. And but if it's a poor guy that all he can afford is a bag of potato chips, although, you know, Texas has a system where if it's non-labeled food, they don't have to pay tax, which I think is great, keeps people healthier. But anyway, if that's all he can afford is you know, one sack of potato chips compared to the guy that buys, you know, a jet airplane, I mean, they're going to pay the same. Everybody contributes, but it's based on what you consume.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not promoting that, but if I really felt like we had a governor that would say, okay, we can look at it absolutely on the guarantee to the Oregon taxpayers that the income tax would be eliminated, and you know, studies have shown that it does bring in additional revenue, but maybe we could save some instead of spend it before we get it.
Yeah, because we have one of the higher income tax rates in the country. So it should involve tax relief. If you move to a sales tax, plus you people who visit Oregon, and it's a great place to visit, scenic, a lot of tourism, would end up paying for things instead of the people here being taxed under an income tax. There's a lot of benefits to it, but the Democrats want to have both pounds of flesh from you, and so that's where that one falls over, right? There
Mhm.
would have to be literally a constitutional firewall preventing them from coming in and uh, reimposing an income tax after it would be changed. It would be an either or, right?
Yeah, and I didn't miss speak there, but you know, to suggest that we need more revenue, we have plenty of money in this state. Again, and you and I've talked about this in the past many times, but we have tons of revenue. We just spend too much and in the wrong areas.
Yeah,
OHA,
we don't
Oregon
have
Health.
a revenue problem.
What's that?
We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
No, and OHA is an example that I often use, Kevin, and that is they have a $32 billion biannual budget. 32 billion.
Wow.
All of our natural resource agencies, they that's about 3% of our budget. You know, the Department of Human Services, yeah, and I'm gonna, you know, I'd love to talk about hospitals. There's five in my district, if you count Mercy, which is just barely out of my district, in Roseburg, and then Bay Area, you know, just across the bay from East Side, which is part of my district. I mean, the president has come up with a 52, thank goodness, $52 billion U.S. rural hospital subsidy, and so I'm doing everything I can to make sure we don't get caught flat-footed, and we're ready to get that money to our hospitals,
Yeah. And
and
we
then we
don't
got
want that money to get redirected or fungibly transferred to Portland instead, right? I mean,
that's right.
that's what often happens is that it all ends up in Portland funding DEI woke climate garbage,
Yep.
Uh, or now it's being used to pay enormous sums for people who ran across the border and got let in under the Biden administration, who are not legally eligible for federal benefits. So we're actually spending a tremendous amount of state taxes on that now, and it's going there instead of public safety in Curry County, or it's going there, instead of making sure that we have safe, well demarcated roads with that have the maintenance done on them in Coos County or Douglas, and it's appalling. And it, I think that this is where the battle in 2020, it's a battle about the perception of what's really happening, because so many people actually don't know why this stuff is happening. And then they get told, depending on what media outlet that they follow, that everything that's going wrong in Oregon is President Trump's fault, which is just an absurd idea. Um, and that the number one job of people like Tina Kotek or our not so esteemed Attorney General is to resist the Trump administration instead of working with them to solve problems like rural hospitals and medical care. They should be doing that. They should be getting money and cooperate on infrastructure, which is something that the government does do, right? But we have terrible infrastructure in the state, and it's falling way behind, and the projects are getting way too expensive. And then I heard very recently in one of the cities along the coast, they they have the cost because of PERS. The cost goes up 8% a year just to keep the same people you have, which means that unless your taxes go up 8% a year, which is quickly unaffordable, you end up having to cut services, which is unbelievable. But that's what's happening.
Well, yeah, you mentioned PERS. That is a disaster. I mean, I don't see, and I feel bad for my public employees that have earned it and deserve it, and yet it's been poorly mismanaged, or poorly managed, and there's some say it's almost a $30 billion deficit, unsustainable debt, and so
Unfunded liability. Yep.
no one has wanted to take that on, including the Republicans. I mean, they don't know what to do. But we sound the alarm. Do we have a solution? Not really, because it's so far out of hand. And unless we put Oregon back in a really solid economic foundation, and bring businesses back and keep the ones we got, there's no chance of maintaining or taking care of that debt to the people that truly have earned it. So, yeah, that's one. Yeah, I got to work outside today, by the way. Did you get outside? It was just gorgeous. And I'd like
A little
to,
bit.
yeah, I'd like to talk about, if you would like, Monique Despain's campaign.
Oh, yes, absolutely. By the way, could we answer one question? Lori Shaw says, what
I'm
about
sorry.
changing our sanctuary status?
Oh God, thank you, Lori. That's you just mentioned our Attorney General and 52 lawsuits. That's the some of them are class actions, some are single lawsuits against the current administration. He's our top cop. He should be out finding criminals. And as you said very well, he should be working with the federal government. If you don't like their policies, go elbow to elbow, fly to DC and talk to the president's people and say, this is why this is wrong. This is why this needs to be changed. That's what we have to do as a minority. And they are in the minority right now. So the millions of dollars to file the lawsuits against him just because that keeps him in office. It's just it's crushing. And so yes, that comes back to the sanctuary, uh, uh, protecting protecting criminals. I mean, my gosh, the stuff that's out there and in our neighborhoods, and children are unsafe, and Portland once our a tremendous source of pride. Why in the world they would put themselves in that category, which draws bad people? We just can't square that. So therefore, there's just one more fight that we have to take on, take seriously, and push back, and we are.
I got one question before we do talk about Monique Despain's campaign, because actually it kind of relates to both her campaign and the coast. And I think about the sanctuary status and I think about that, but I also think why I just saw an article where they're musing and still talking about the offshore wind farms.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, isn't that dead? Didn't we get rid of that? And it says that this is the title of the article. It says coastal communities weigh uh, offshore wind trade offs. And I'm like, I think this community has spoken on this. And the answer was hell no, with a few more expletives thrown in. And the Trump administration said, we're done with these projects. They're expensive. They don't actually pencil out. They don't survive after their subsidies are withdrawn. So they live forever off of government subsidies, and then they don't generate the amount of electricity that's needed that you could with other sources like nuclear or natural gas, and they're not reliable. And then this came up last year. These wind farms, uh, if there's a Columbus Day storm that comes through, it'll destroy all of them. And so, and then you'll have all that debris along the beautiful Curry and Coos County coastline. Not to mention the effects it would have on commercial and sport fishing along the coast. So, why are they still talking about this? Is somebody saying they think it's still a good idea and they want to do it?
It's just another way to spend money. I really couldn't add much to what you just offered there. I've been looking at this for almost 5 years, and where do you want me to start? Here's just one. Okay, let's begin this way. Many unanswered questions. You just mentioned the violent storms. Okay, they're a little bit the offshore wind farms are a little bit successful in Western Europe, but they don't get the storms we get, not even close. And their water is shallow. We have deep water here. The big,
2,000 feet, right?
yeah. Well, it depends. I mean, it varies, but yeah,
They
this
were going
right.
to anchor it. They were going to tether it to the bottom of the seafloor off the coast of like Gold Beach, for instance. And apparently, they've never done it in that depth of water, have they?
No, and they do not have the technology, not even close. But I just people can relate to this pretty well. I studied this a lot, but in summarizing, these giant cables on the ocean floor, they how much of a radiation, not radiation, but just wavelengths did they put off? So we
Yeah.
work and spend thousands of dollars and should to recover our salmon and steelhead populations. Nobody can answer if that will, corrupt their navigation systems to get back into the freshwater rivers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge issue right there. You just mentioned, the storms washing the stuff up on shore. I mean, we spend millions to get people to come and look at our beautiful Oregon coast, and we want to. And these things, Kevin, they are 4 football fields high, 3.5,
Yeah.
and the blades are 100 yards, so 300 feet. Uh, I think the biggest aspect is what they'll do to our fishermen. I mean, they just brutal. So
Oh,
to
they're
answer your
made in
question,
China. And they're made in China.
oh yeah, and the president said just the other night, he said, "Well, how many offshore? China's constantly looking at alternative energy. Why don't they have any off their multiple millions of square miles,
Yeah.
of options in ocean frontage. But yeah, I mean, it's the original thing was that there's 400 million that went to Humboldt County, which is a port similar to Port of Coos Bay, North Bend, and that money's been rescinded, thank goodness. But when somebody's very similar ports, by the way, Humboldt and Bay Area. And so when they got that 400 million, I'm thinking, okay, did we miss out on something there? Because the money would go to the tribes, the fishermen, the counties, and the ports. And I have counting Coos Bay, North Bend, I have 5 ports in my district, and yes, we're right in the heart of the area. So why is it coming back, even though we know it can't work? Because there is a bent, there is a quest, you know, to prove themselves wrong time after time after time. It's just, yes, it just it makes you pull your hair out, but it's we're going to win that one. Thank to the current thanks to the current administration, whether you like the guy or not. His policies are proving to be. We knew what he was going to do, and he's doing it. And he's closed the border. He's getting peace around the world. You know, we got an American Pope. We got soccer championships here. We got the 250-year American celebration, July 4th. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The gas prices going down, except
They
mine.
are.
And I mean, there's a dozen things that have been accomplished there, you know. So um, I remain very optimistic. I just have to be, you know, realistic about the issues that are hurting our quality of life, and that's my job. And I think slowly improving at it anyway.
Well, let's talk. You mentioned about Monique Spain and running for Congress. I mean, we could do with much better representation at the federal level. You talked about how when we could be working with an administration who does want to start doing active forest management and harvesting timber, including what you talked about, where there's been fires and there's actually like a window of 2 years we can get that stuff and turn it into something economically viable. We can replant because it's renewable. Um, we There's an administration that wants us to build and develop infrastructure and economic prosperity around that. There's an administration that wants to make sure that public safety is like a top priority, that it's well funded, not just through timber, but actually through not having as many public safety threats just floating around in our country, that many of which were allowed into our country during the Biden administration. They had uh, 650,000 that had criminal backgrounds that were just allowed into the country, and they promptly went and joined the cartel and started doing crime. And now, not just doing it in the big cities, they're doing it up the 101, aren't they?
Yep.
And we have an administration that wants to actually change what we've been doing about homelessness, not just handing people bottles of water and granola bars, uh, but actually getting them into recovery and off of the streets. Um, and right now, we have a congresswoman that represents all of the things that have been going wrong and the policies that have made it that way. And we could have somebody who would work with the administration to make the fourth district better.
You know, Kevin, things just keep getting worse and worse and worse. We haven't had even close to a moderate. They've been a progressive, borderline socialist since Jim Weaver took over for John Dellenbach, clear back in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And so Monique has that spirit. She has that background. She is an incredibly qualified candidate. She is honest. She's ready to roll up her sleeves. And I just couldn't be excited. I just hope that the people will say, okay, give this person a chance. Give Christine Drazan or, you know, a moderate to conservative governor of Oregon a chance. And if we don't get the job done, throw us out. Okay. That's fine. That's what you should do. But nobody's going to outwork us. And so, yeah, Monique being willing to go back to DC, that's not fun. But her heart's in the right place. She's got 2 sons. She wants to leave a better world. And, you know, I just can't emphasize her qualifications and, you know, her spirit to do the right thing, run for the right reasons is just it's a breath of fresh air. And America is so special, and we just don't want to lose um, the traditions that have made it so unique to world history.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, it's great having somebody who understands national security and understands how to prepare for disasters, because she was in the National Guard. She understands the need for public safety. She worked with Kevin Mannix on the suing Kate Brown when Kate Brown was releasing 8% of the jail population, including murderers and rapists, just because she wanted to reshape how our jails are being used. And isn't it true that every time push comes to shove, our our friends across the aisle go back to things that we thought we'd left behind from 2020, like defunding the police? Now they want to defund immigration enforcement.
Hmm.
But they're effectively defunding local police too by all the things we just mentioned, having them operate off a shoestring. This is true in the big cities too. The I know that the Lane County Sheriff, for instance, operates a department that is the same size it was when the population was 100,000 less in Lane County,
Yep.
and Lane County is the size of Connecticut. So it is it they're just there's when the wrong priorities are embodied by somebody who's in office, you get the wrong stuff. We could have somebody that embodies the right priorities and actually understands that these are the things that need to be done, and by the way, listens. You saw Monique at the Bay Area Chamber,
Hmm.
right? So she was there talking to people, listening to their stories. We talked to you must know, is it Anthony, is it Rodriguez? He owns the Toyota dealer
Oh
in
yeah.
fantastic guy, um, and yet he has to deal constantly with his business being and his employees being assaulted by violent homeless people. And I'm just like, this guy is a salt of the earth. He helps the local community. He donates and raises money for the schools. He has that raffle between Marshfield and North Bend, to sell raffle tickets to raise money for both schools. And he has to put up with, well, literally just being assaulted on a regular basis. Uh, and that's somebody that I know Monique spent some time listening to recently. Listening to these businesses and what they're going through, that's what a person from Congress should be doing. And I think our current congresswoman spends her time in DC listening to some people that have some really poor ideas about how to run the country, and think that we should have an open border. We shouldn't do anything about the criminals that got in here and are committing crimes, and we should defund, or as she put it the other way, dismantle ICE. Um, when you dismantle law enforcement, you don't get law enforcement. You get anarchy, don't you?
Well, you get a crime spree that, I mean, since time began, human nature is what? When one group wants to control another group. That's why America's been so incredibly successful, is that individual spirit and freedom. So yeah, I mean, I've got a son that's a captain with the Oregon State Police, and that's a good point that you made. I mean, they have the same number they had in the 70s, and we had twice the population.
Yep.
And you can't square that. We don't understand. I get along good with Congresswoman Hoyle. I get along good with Senator Merkley, but what I don't understand is the last year or two, they both especially have gone so far left.
Yeah.
It just makes your head spin. I go, okay, you know what that's doing to rural Oregon. You know what that's doing to the entire state. It makes no sense. It's causing pain for everybody. You've got to reverse back towards a balanced outlook, or it's something's going to give. I'm not pessimistic, but it's an interesting time we live. So, hey, I'll give you a recap of my 2025 year.
Yeah.
How are
Please.
we doing on time?
We're good. Keep going.
You made me think of something there on the House floor. One of my biggest honors in life was to recognize Jane Jin. She was a freedom fighter in China 34 years ago, the Tiananmen Square massacre. To this day, we don't know how many thousands were murdered by the Chinese government,
Yeah.
because they were able to successfully keep that quiet. She escaped, come to the United States, and we got acquainted at campaign event, and she's just an amazing woman. And now she is very brave. Well, she's always been very brave, but she has a program called China Freedom, and so I got to recognize her on the House floor, and she got very big applause and what have you. I'm now the chair of the Oregon Coastal Caucus, which is 7 counties, 22 incorporated cities, and about 24 ports. I made the front of Rural Light magazine, the Oregon Rural Electric Co-op, so that'll be out any day. So it's just been a really, I got to speak at the Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans deal. We read a proclamation of the governor. That was back in April. So anyway, just a lot of special things like that. That's just really been humbling for me and motivating as well. And so I'm going to start my 4th year in Salem. And of course, it's election year. So if anybody has any questions or needs any coachcourt@gmail.com. And yeah, we got some serious work to do. It goes without saying, and we're going to return Oregon to normal, Kevin.
Well, and um, you know, the thing you just mentioned about Tiananmen Square, why is that important? Well, you might say, well, that's the distant past. Well, then look what happened in Iran in just the past few
Oh my
weeks.
gosh.
They're doing
Yeah.
the same thing.
Hmm.
They're doing the same thing, which is why we have to remind people that this happened and that tyrants will do this kind of stuff. And they try to accuse Donald Trump of being a king and a tyrant. And I'm just like, well, then how come he's letting you protest? I mean, seriously. And by the way, protest, not assault people, not interfere with federal law enforcement. That's an agitator or a violent protester. No, just this is what real tyrants do. They do what Maduro did for decades in Venezuela. They do what happened in Tiananmen Square. They just, and then they hide it, right? So we have to tell people about history and we
Well,
have to actually commemorate it.
they hide it through bearing false witness, through lies.
Yep.
They perfect the art of lying, and it serves their purpose. And we have that going on in our country right now. God give us a desire to seek truth. So people that hear our voices, just I'm not telling them what to do, but just encouraged to seek the truth. No, people say, okay, you just listen to one or two different news media sites, and I go, well, I've got enough experience in my life. I can look and be a good judge of character and who's telling the truth. And if I don't know, I'm going to find somebody who can help me find the truth. And so that's how you're going to improve the quality of your life and leave a better future for your children and grandchildren. And I think that's what most of us are about.
Amen.
And
By the way,
don't ever assault a police officer. Even if they're a jerk, you stand down and you wait and let their cameras roll, because it will prove if they mistreated you or abused your individual rights.
that's right. Resisting arrest, and especially if you're armed, is a super stupid idea. And uh, I think that this could be one of these teachable moments for people to understand the difference between um, violence and actual just making your voice heard. There is a difference. I don't have any if I think people are complete idiots, they have the right to be complete idiots in expressing themselves.
I.e., January 6th, but they did not hurt anyone. I mean, it was they did some really stupid things, but they
Well, and a
didn't.
very small number of them did,
Yeah.
and then there were like a million people in the Capitol Mall, and then a few hundred went in and broke some things on invitation for some reason by the Capitol Police, which is puzzling to me.
Yep.
But the truth has come out about that, and yet I have no problem actually condemning vandalism and violence. I don't think it's a form of protest. This is what is really and truly troubling about what's going on in Minnesota right now is
Well,
you
it's law
have
breaking. It's not free speech.
they're encouraging it.
Yep.
They're rooting for it. They're
That's
saying
right.
go out and do that, and then they're claiming it's all peaceful. If you get hit in the head by a frozen water bottle while doing your sworn federal officer duty to arrest a criminal illegal, you're not going to think that's peaceful.
No.
It's that simple, isn't it?
No, it's I'm not defending what happened on January 6th, the craziness of that. I wouldn't have done it. Those were people that 90% of them just wanted to be free and just wanted to express their opinion. But now we've got attacking law enforcement officers with cars, and we need to get the bad people out of our country. The child molesters, the rapists, the murderers, the drug lords, they have to go, or we will not survive as a culture. And if people don't disagree with that, look at history. Just learn from history.
Yeah.
Authoritarian governments, like you just said a minute ago, what's going on in Iran right now, where they hang people from a crane, 100 feet in the air, multiple citizens. I mean, wow, it's we better be on our toes.
Better be on our toes. We should speak the truth. We should actually ask people to think first before they join in a violent movement of any kind. Because actually, people fought and died to create a country that we wouldn't have to do that, that we could actually make our voices heard peacefully and patriotically. To quote someone on January 6th who did the opposite of what Governor Walz is doing now, and that we would have a system by which we could persuade one another with words, um, and set a good example and campaign for the support when it comes to election day. And I'm kind of concerned right now that some things are coming unhinged. That right now there are literally people who are encouraging people to go out and shoot ICE agents. And I know that there's an event coming up on the coast. You know what it is? It's Turning Point, and I hope that some of the threats and the agitators that plan to do more than just peacefully protest what Turning Point is doing. I hope it stays peaceful because
In Roseburg, I got to speak. There's about 800 people there at the Douglas County Courthouse for Charlie Kirk's ceremony to pay respectful tribute to him, and that was just 5 days after he was murdered. I mean, I just got all kinds of things like that. So yes, I'm going to be praying for a peaceful event, and let our young people know that Charlie Kirk had a microphone, and the other side has clubs and the Molotov cocktails, and sniper
motor
rifles.
vehicles, yeah,
Yes.
and frankly, shotguns. That's what took his life. He wasn't. He didn't get into a car accident. He was shot,
Yeah,
and
just debate us. Just sit down, have a cup of coffee, and debate us. Have a dialogue that's with respect and earnest, heartfelt philosophies, and let's change the world for the better. Just speak freely, as you said a minute ago. Seek the truth.
seek the truth, speak the truth, and pursue what's right. Well, Court, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here today. Another great episode. And we covered a lot. We got to hear your 2025 end of the year update. We got to hear what's likely to happen in the state legislature and a picture from the inside. And we talked about some of the really important issues and the people that we know are fighting alongside you to change this, both in the state legislature and, of course, for Congress. So, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on. And I did post here your website, which is Court Voice for Oregon, FOR Oregon.com. And they should also check out your state legislative site, which they can find by going to OregonLegislature.gov. It's actually OregonLegislature.gov/voice, and they can check out what's going on with bills and with activity, and of course on OLIS. They can. And somebody asked me, where can you go to follow what bills are being produced? And I have found that the Oregon Citizens Lobby is actually pretty effective at least keep giving us alerts, right? Because they like to sneak things through, especially in these short sessions. And the Oregon Citizens Lobby.org is a place that anybody can go to follow. And again, good luck with the session next week, and come back and tell us what happens, because we definitely want to know what's happening inside the building as you guys work on things for the next month.
Kevin, I'll be glad to, and I will look forward to it. And just keep up the good work, and tell all of our mutual friends that Voice of Reason said hello.
I will. I will. I'll pass it along. Thanks everyone for watching and listening here today, and definitely check us out on the next episode of the Captive Audience. Have a great night, all, and we'll see you soon.